Hi guys, this is Nick Christopher from Mob Tales. Thanks a lot for showing up. Please like, share, and subscribe. We definitely appreciate it. Our numbers are going up, which is great to see. Today I got a very special guest, somebody we've both been following each other or know a lot about each other, but never had an opportunity to meet or even do this kind of thing. So I'd like to welcome Seth Ferranti, who is next, ex drug dealer, so to speak, author, writer. He's done a lot, redeemed himself in so many different ways, and we're very happy to have him on the show. Seth, thank you very much.
Hey, what's up, man? I appreciate you having me on, man. I've been a fan of Mob Tales for a minute.
Well, thanks for that. I appreciate that. I've been a friend of Gorilla Convict for a long time, so we actually like each other's work, which is a good thing to know. So what I'm going to basically do is I'm going to give people a little bit of background about who you are, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions. Um, well, Seth has a very interesting life. He came from as a very young age. He got involved with dealing LSD in colleges and things of that nature. Got involved with a lot of tough guys on the street. Did some time, and then got out and decided. And while he was when he was in prison, he um, made a kind of, I guess, rule for himself to try to do something better. And he not only did a bachelor's degree completed in prison, but also a master's, which is amazing. A lot of guys in prison can't manage to do that. And he met a lot of guys from that kind of world and collected a lot of information. And after that, came out and did a lot of stuff in the journalism world, film world that we're going to be discussing. So Seth, my first question really is coming from that kind of a background as a young boy, you were like a teenager, teenager into to teen 20s. Um, what what kind of drew you to that world to begin with? What made you? Did you? Because I don't know too much about your family background, but what put you on that bad path, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I was like a military brat. We moved around a lot, so I would say, lower middle class, and then later, when my dad got out and started working for defense contractors, he started making a little bit more money after he did 20 in the military. So then we were probably upper middle class. But that was when, I was already a teenager, kind of doing my thing by then. But I don't know. My whole thing was like, I was like I don't really like that term drug dealer because like in the 80s the feds tried to use that and put it all together. Like what I support, I support what I think are like medicinal and spiritual, and therapeutic drugs, like cannabis and LSD and other psychedelics. I mean, but to each his own, but back then all that stuff was categorized the same, there was the same as heroin. So,
Hmm.
we kind of got branded, but even from that young age, for me, it was about expanding my own mind, and it's about the restrictions, because it seems like our society, they put these restrictions and all these limits on like what we're supposed to do, what we're not supposed to do, what's acceptable, what's not. I mean, we all inherently know what is good and evil. So I mean, you know that, what's good and evil. And I've been to prison 21 years, and I would say the majority of people, probably 95%, are not evil. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've been
Hmm.
around all types of dudes that done all, but there are some like really psycho crazy people. But yeah, my thing was kind of like the mind expansion thing, and I was like, I felt people should have access to these drugs, and I could get access to it, and but I'm not gonna lie, I mean, the money didn't hurt. I mean, the money was nice, it was, back in the '80s, at the height of the war, late '80s, '90s, height of the war on drugs, you could make pretty good money off, weed and psychedelics as opposed to today, in this environment of, recreational legal weed and psychedelics on the verge of, coming in to be studied for a whole bunch of variety of ailments.
Hmm. Well, being that be the case in that time, during that time, where it was frowned upon to, be let alone taking, let alone selling it. Um, so, in your perspective, you didn't see it in that way. You saw it more of a, you know, it's funny that it's funny because now marijuana is legal. How bizarre is that?
Yeah.
So
No,
it's like an oxymoron.
I feel really justified in my beliefs as a teenager and a young man. Because look, I never carried a gun, you know, so I just never consider myself a criminal. Like, you know, I consider myself an outlaw. I broke laws that I thought were wrong. You know, of course, I'm not going to lie and say, you know, like I did it for free. Yeah, I made money, man. You know, that's what I did. I sold substances. I made money off of that. I was a hustler, an outlaw. But, you know, I still also had this belief, you know, that was, the money was just one part of it. You know, the belief that everybody should have access to these you know, kind of open their mind. What was another big part of it, definitely.
Oh, well, it being that the case, even though your views were a lot different than, you know, the general public, the government, whatever, was very different. Um, how did this affect your family at this point? I mean, I'm sure they were like, "Oh, damn, Seth is going away." I'm sure it was very traumatic.
Oh no, definitely, man. I mean, it was I tore my mom apart. My mom just passed you know, recently, you know, RIP, you know, mom up in heaven. But
I'm
you
sorry
know,
to
my
hear.
dad's still alive. Yeah, my dad's still alive, but yeah, it tore them apart, you know, because they were, you know, they were like, you know, the generation, you know, I'm 52, so they were the generation before. So, you know, they were more had like that 50s, you know,
Mm-hmm.
kind of American nationalism, which I'm saying in a lot of things, you know, compared to what we have today, that's probably better, you
Yeah.
know, but still, that was kind of like when I was growing up, you know, we were kind of rebelling against that. So, you know, they believed everything the government said. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was funny, right? Because now, you know, you know, my dad's like 80 something, right? And he actually said to me, he's like, you know, maybe you were right about that wacky weed. You know, because he sees everything that happens. So, you know,
Yeah.
whereas back then, though, you know, they believed the government line. And yeah, you know, whatever, it was war on drugs, you know, that's what it was. So, you know, they were law abiding citizens, you know, you know, the government said this, so they believed it. You know, but definitely I have worked overtime, you know, through from prison to repair that relationship. You know, and I was lucky I did get out and I was able to spend 8 years with my mom before she passed.
Wow. Okay, that's a good thing. Well, being that, from what I understand, you believed you were convicted for falsely convicted, and you went away for too long. Can you help us justify understand that?
Well, I was still on drugs. It was illegal, but I was a first time nonviolent offender. They gave me 25 years. So, I mean, that was kind of steep, you know,
Yeah.
especially since like murderers, you know, people get a second degree murder charge doing like 5 years or stuff like that, you know. So, yeah, I definitely disagreed with that. And I didn't think it was right. But at that time, I don't know. It just seemed like back then, man, like they were just throwing that time out like candy. You know, that's what like dudes in the joint say. You know, like they were just giving that time out like candy. Everybody was just coming in like 10, 25, you know, 40, 50, 60 life. Yeah, so it was crazy that the system was extremely slanted, but that was like that with that whole, you know, war on drugs, you know, fanfare, propaganda, you know, everybody. And you know, let's be honest too. It started out with the African Americans, with the black dudes, because of the crack stuff, you know, and so they passed these laws in whatever, like 88, 89. You know, they targeted the inner city for I don't know, like 3, 4, 5 years, and then they started getting complaints. So then they went out to the suburbs, and I was in that first wave, you know, because it's just, you know, it's cultural differences. You know, out of the suburb, you know, more people are, you know, maybe not smoking weed, but more people are doing psychedelics. You got more like the hippie vibe, you know, and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So that's when I was like in that first wave when they went after all the weed and LSD guys in '91.
Well,
And
you.
you know, like,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh yeah, and two, like right out, like I took off, dude. Like I didn't wait around. Like, you know, I got busted, and then I got out on bond, and I fled, dude. You know, because I was like, I didn't want any part of that. You know, I didn't put, you know, they were talking you know, 25 to life. I'm like, I didn't want, and I was like 20. You know what I'm saying?
So you were
I was
20.
like, man,
You were so
20
how
years
old
old. Yeah, 20 years old.
when you went in?
No, 20-year old when I got, uh, you know, when I got busted. I was 22. I fled. I was a fugitive for 2 years. So I was top 15, top 15 most wanted list for the U.S. Marshals for 2 years, from like
Oh,
91 to 93.
but
Yeah,
that
then
was
I got caught.
but that was because you were it was you your case was very rare because you were given a high conviction rate of many years for first
Yeah,
offender.
yeah, yeah. No, I was like on dude, I was like, in the sentencing guidelines, right? Like that's how
Huh?
they sentence all these people. It's criminal history category like 1 to 6. And then
What?
the other it goes like whatever up to 42, right? I was like level 40, bro. I got sentenced at level 40, criminal history category 1. So my it was like 292 to like whatever 300 and something months. And they gave me the bottom end, 292. But that
Wow.
was crazy being sentenced like it only goes to 42. And I'm like,
Yeah.
just because of the weight of the LSD, and really it was a carrier weight. So it's not even the real weight of the drug. So it was just they were doing crazy stuff, man. They were just knocking dudes in the head. They didn't care.
Yeah. What I mean, being that the case, did you ever? I'm not sure if you ever dabbled in this at all, but about wrongly convicted people that are doing time that are wrongly convicted. Have you ever focused on that at all, or did anything with that?
Yeah, I've done. I mean, I've done some stories and stuff, and even some documentary work. The dude that I did White Boy with, Sean Reck, his first film, A Murder in the Park.
Hmm.
That's about wrong convicted, and then he was working on this other one called Wrong Cat that I don't know if it's ever come out. Yeah, and then even like the White Boy case, Rick Wershey Jr. It wasn't he was wrongly convicted, but he was like severely over sentenced. I felt like me. I wasn't innocent, whatever. I broke the law, but I broke laws that I thought were wrong. I didn't consider myself criminal, but whatever. This was what society says. They want to bring the hammer down. My problem was not with doing time. My problem was how did I get 25 years as a first time nonviolent offender? I was like 22 from the suburbs. Like never carried a gun, and I'm getting like this crazy like organized crime, mafia or like gangbanger, gangster time.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just some kid going around to colleges, like slinging some weed and LSD. And really, in the big scheme of things, I mean, for a teenager, yeah, I was doing pretty decent numbers. I might be making like whatever around 20 grand a month or something. That's like profit. But you know, I mean, the big scheme of things, I mean, I was dealing with like hundreds of pounds.
yeah.
You know, 10,000, 20,000 hits of acid. I wasn't like a big boy. I was like just a little broker. You know,
This is
and
and this is where you grew up where in California was it or?
Yeah, California, but I lived overseas too because my dad was in the military.
Oh,
So
that was right.
yeah, we were in Germany for 2 years and England for 3 years, but then mostly back to California.
Well, just curiosity before I go into anything deeper. Were you ever interested in being involved in what in the military like your dad was? Was that ever was that ever an interest to you?
I would say at one time, yeah, like probably when that movie Top Gun. Remember when the first Top Gun
Yeah,
came out?
yeah.
I think I was probably like 15 or 16, right? And my dad was a pilot.
Oh, he's a pilot.
He was in the Navy, but he flew F-16s like early in his career. So he had like the bomber jacket. So I got like that. I got his bomber jacket and I started wearing it, and I wanted to be like Top Gun.
Oh,
I
so
wanted to be a fighter pilot. Yeah, that was maybe only for like a couple years. Then I got way into drugs, and it was like whatever.
okay. Well, like I said earlier, you were able to push yourself to study in prison, where you did, you did your bachelor's, your master's, all that stuff. Um, what motivated you to do that? What was it? Somebody?
Uh,
else?
I mean,
It
in
was
one regard, yeah, I mean, I was bored. I did have some mentors. I had a couple of mentors. Dudes that I saw how they were kind of moving. After I did the first, I started taking the college classes just because I was kind of bored, and that was like a way to repair the relationship with my parents. Send them, look, I got A's. Because they were both into education and had master's degrees, and So at first it was kind of like that, boredom. But then, yeah, from studying other guys that I met, I was like, if I want to have a future, I got to have something going on the street, or I'm just going to come out like, what I'm doing 21 years and just come out and, hey, world, I got to start building something. So it's like, what can I build? And then I started looking at different stuff. But, luckily, I was like a real big reader. So I'd read all the prison books about prison. I've read all those. Then like, I'm in the East Coast, man. I'm on the East Coast. There's like all types of mafia dudes, bro. So I start reading all the mafia books. Then there's all types, I was like mid 90s, dude, ton of Colombians. So I start reading all the books on Colombians. And then that's kind of how I started writing my own books because I'd read all these books, and then, I started hearing, like mid '90s, like when gangster rap gets real big, you know, and they start name dropping like all the dudes from New York City, from the East Coast, and then like I'm like with some of these dudes, like I don't even know who they are. I might know their name, but I don't know the legend or the lore. I'm not from that area. A lot of this legend and lore was really kind of just local until hip hop kind of blew it up. And then I'm in prison like with these dudes, and I'm trying to get books, and there's no books on there. There's hardly even articles. There might be like newspaper articles and stuff, but the newspaper articles are basically just like what the prosecutor's saying. So there's nothing to kind of explain these people, as humans. And I see these dudes on the compound, and I'm like, they like he seems all right, So I don't know. I just go up and meet the dudes. That's how I started writing the book, the first Street Legends books. Because I was like, why aren't these dudes being represented? And like I'm saying, anybody from that side, I mean, there's going to be some psychopaths, man. That's the life. There's psychopaths, but I mean, I would say surprisingly, and maybe I'm biased, but yeah, I met a lot of good dudes, man. A lot of good dudes, like from all different races, all different, like solid, good dudes, like that you would take home to eat at your house. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they might be killers. I'm not saying they're not killers, but they're not going to kill you unless there's a good reason. So as long as you do what you're supposed to do, and they treat you like a man, you treat them like a man, it ain't going to be no question.
So basically, you were looking at the human side of these people.
Yeah, because I think what you see in the newspaper, man. I mean, it's stereotypes and any type of crime. With these young black guys. I mean, they're all painted as they're all like young violent thugs just because of the way they look or where they're from or because they got gold teeth or because they sag their pants. So I just knew I was in prison with a lot of these dudes, and I knew. I'm not saying some of those dudes they got some gangsters, but that's like like any race or any ethnic group. That's like the minority. And most of the dudes are, kind of go any way the wind blows. You know what I'm saying? It just depends, if they have a strong person around them, which way they're going to lead them.
Okay. Well, I mean, of all these individuals that you met, was there anyone that really um, how you say, not affected you, but really that you would love to talk, that you enjoy speaking to the most? That
Yeah, Kenneth Supreme McGriff. He was from Queens, New York. He was the leader of the Supreme Team. He used to go around with Irv Gotti. He was around there at the beginning of Murder Inc. He actually made a couple of movies based on Donald Goines' books when he was out one time. Uh, I mean, this dude was like a gentleman, like the most like dudes would come up and we'd be walking on the pound, and you only got like I think it was 5-minute moves to get where you're going, and dudes would come up and they'd want to like spit them bars or something like that, like rap to him right in the middle of the compound. And I would always tell him like why do you listen to these dudes? Why do what we only got a certain amount of time, man, let's go. And he told me straight up, he's like, man, he goes, you can learn a lot from an idiot. He said you can learn a lot from an idiot, so sometimes you got to stop and listen. So that dude, he was a real classy dude. And another dude, like Italian gangster that I was with in FCI Ferriton, Michael Perna.
oh yeah, I know he is.
Yeah, Michael Perna, man, that dude. Like, if you're talking about like the Godfather, mafia guy. I mean, that was Michael Perna. Perna, man. He was just like he looked out for people, always nice, polite. Always got a smile, always looking. but of course, he's a gangster. So, I mean, whatever. Gangsters do what they got to do, or they get somebody else to do it. So, I'm not saying dude was straight gangster, but he was just super classy, gentleman, treated people with respect. Because I met some people, in those positions or that have that type of notoriety, and they can be abrasive, or they can be like, think like they're running stuff, or people are supposed to bow down to them, so you meet all types of different people. So when you see these dudes, these guys that have these names, and they're actually, like classy gentlemen dudes. That's why I give Kenneth Supreme McGriff and Michael Perna, I give them both the utmost respect.
Well, being that you're Italian, I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah, yeah, Italian, Irish.
Italian Irish. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
that's pretty lethal.
yeah.
Being that case, like see, a lot of people don't really understand what goes on in prison. They forget about the movies you watch, and it's all bullshit. They're not giving you the whole. I know a little bit more only because I know guys that are in. Good friends of mine. Um, One of them was actually in PA in Allenwood. He still is there. He's doing life actually. I got two guys. All right.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Yeah, I see. All good. So
Yeah, no, Allenwood's a vicious pin, man.
yeah, two of my
That
friends.
USP. Yeah, that USP, man. That's a pretty it's not Lewisburg, but it's a pretty storied place. It's been around. A lot of dudes been through there. You hear a lot of stories from there.
Oh yeah, I mean I've been there. I mean I went to visit
Yeah,
both
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
friends that are
Yeah.
one guy's
Well,
in.
you know what they say in the pen, right? So see, I was only in mediums, so I did like 12 years in the mediums. They call mediums like gladiator schools. Basically you got to fight, and then they got the lows. I did 9 years in lows, my last nine. But I knew a lot of dudes from the pen. I was never in the pen, but that's what they say in the pen. They say boys fight, men kill. But in the mediums, whatever, it's all boys, so you fight. That's why they call it gladiator school, because I played a lot of sports though too, so I was kind of out there, but I got my respect. It took some years, but it's like anything. Just like on the street. If you're a man out here, you're gonna be a man in there. You just might have to do different shit. You
Right.
know.
But I know when it comes to being inside, like my second book that it's called Prison Rules, and I did it with Johnny Alight, and
Oh, okay.
he's
Yeah, I
been
know John.
he did 16 years, so he knows a lot, just like you do, and I learned a lot from him of what it's really like inside, and some of
No,
it's not
definitely.
obviously some of it's not very pretty, but
Yeah, it's a lot, and a lot is boring. A lot is really, it's just boring. It's like monotony. You know.
there's a monotony, yes.
Yeah,
So but
yeah. It's
I learned more about him when he explained to me how to treat each other. Like you got
yeah, 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 yeah.
respect is a big thing in prison,
Oh
and
no, definitely. It's the biggest thing.
yeah, a lot of people.
Any type of disrespect, or a sense of disrespect. Like you could disrespect somebody you not even know, and they'll come and stab you. You know what I'm saying? So it's like weird. It's tricky, man. It's you got to navigate it, and I'd say a lot of this stuff that you can be successful in there. Sometimes you can transfer it, but the first thing, like for me, I didn't bring the prison mentality out. Because I want to, I'm not gonna be out here like I'm gonna be like I got someone disrespect me, I gotta stab them. You can't live like that out here. There's too many people hustle and bustle. Everybody's going on their way.
Mhm.
So you got to kind of adapt a different mentality. But in there, you got to have that mentality, man. That's the mentality that serves you, that helps you survive.
That's correct. Well, like I said, after you went ahead, with the masters, the bachelors, whatever, then when you did get out, you started, you were able to build on your journalism and writing plan, and you started writing for like Don Diva, Vice, all these
Yeah, yeah,
different
yeah, 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 yeah.
publications. How did you get
Yep.
linked? How did you get linked up with these people?
So really, I started writing for a lot of those while I was still in prison.
Oh
So
yeah,
I'd say,
yes, yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So probably like I started, I got in prison. I went in like '93, so probably '99. I was writing for publication, and I got hooked up with Don D because there was some people. They were at Allenwood Camp with Kevin Charles, and he had just started the magazine, and he got violated for something, and got rolled out or something, and then they got violated and sent to Fort Dix. and they brought like they had like the first issue or something. They're like, "Hey, this is our guy. He got this magazine. He's looking for writers." And it had a dress, so like I reached out and you know started sending them stuff, and I started up the correspondence. And then even that Don Diva for a number of years, I had to write stuff under Soul Man Seth because the feds like they kept locking me up. You know, they're trying to say I'm running a business. You know, because I was getting paid for writing and stuff. They just didn't like what I was writing about because they said, you know, like I'm glorifying, you know, these street figures. You know, and yeah. So I don't know. For me with the writing,
I
oh, go
find
ahead.
sorry to interrupt, but I know what it's like in prison. They monitor everything you say and everything you write. How were you able to get be able to get stuff published and not them say, wait, no, when they take this from you,
Well, see, I took this. They got this one regulation, right? I used to read the you know, all the policy statements like religiously, like pertaining to writing or anything I was doing. Even like, you know, I was doing in there. I wasn't like a jailhouse lawyer, like filing stuff outside, but I was like a jailhouse lawyer for like inside stuff. You know, like doing cop outs and eights, nines, tens, grievances and stuff like that. So
hmm
I knew all the policies. Like I knew the policies like in and out, right? And I knew the writing policies and stuff like this. So they have this little thing where you could send it legal mail if you were corresponding with the news media. You know, that's protecting your First Amendment rights so they can't retaliate against you and stuff like that. So I used to send out all my articles like that. And if they would say something, I'd be like, man, I'm sending this to an editor. I go call and check. This is an editor at this magazine. Call him up. And he assigned me this thing to look, and I'm sending it to him, you
oh,
know?
so you found a little loophole, smart.
Yeah, yeah. And then the same thing I did because I used to get paid, right? I started getting paid. And back then you got paid good for journalism, man. I remember, dude, I was doing these columns for Vice. I was getting like $900 a month for like 800 word column,
Oh, that's
you know,
great.
that was in print. Yeah, dude, it was like phenomenal back then. Like writers tell me what they make now. I'm like, oh man, I'm glad I moved into film. But yeah, but definitely, man, I was doing all types of stuff from prison, and they would like try to say I'm running a business, you know, but I would say no, this is actually my intellectual property, and I signed all this property over to my girl, and she contracts with the editor and sells it to them, and they pay her, right?
Well,
And they couldn't say shit. They were so mad, dude. Dude, like I used to have sit downs with like the SIS people, dude, because they were trying to figure out ways to get me to stop writing. Sometimes they would just lock me up and transfer me. I mean, that happened too. You know, I was locked up 6 months one time for my writing. But yeah, I would tell them that loophole, bro, and they get mad because they couldn't. Same thing. If you're in prison and you own a house, you can't sell the house, but you can get a lawyer or you can get somebody power of attorney to sell the house. So I just give this girl power of attorney over my I to sell my IP.
very smart.
Yeah, so yeah, so I beat him. I used to figure out little different ways, you know, to beat him. You know, and sometimes it worked, and you know, sometimes they would just lock me up and ship me. You know, they'd be like, "This dude's too smart. We don't want him here," and he's fucking writing about all types of crazy stuff. Dude, I was writing about the drug program, like I was writing about the drug program and criticizing it while I was in it. They finally threatened me, dude. They said, "Do you want to finish the drug program and go home?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Well, stop writing.
They never,
Don't write." Yeah.
they never threw you in the hole, did they?
Yeah, I got thrown in the hole a bunch of times, man.
Oh shit,
One
that's
time, 6 months, dude. Investigation every time. Investigation for some bullshit. They would say some investigation like I'm smuggling in drugs or smuggling in contraband or I'm planning an escape and keep me on ice for like 30 to 60 days. And then they wouldn't even say shit. The SIS would not even come and see me. They'd leave me in 30, 60 days, and then they just come and let me right back out without saying nothing to me, no charges, nothing.
that's fucked up. You could
Just to give me
you could have
just to give
filed
me a message
you
to try to.
could have filed a civil suit, no?
But I mean, how am I going to prove it's for my writing? I mean, they're saying what it's for. They're covering their ass. They can suspect me of whatever, you know, if they have grounds to or not. I'm in prison. I'm a fucking, you know, ward of the state. You don't have, you know, you got limited rights, but you know, you don't
Yeah,
got rights like you're
that's
out
tough.
here.
Yeah,
You
that's
could
great.
probably file a civil suit, but I think, you know, it was just been a waste of effort. You
Right.
know, judge probably would have just thrown it out.
Well, well, after you you got out in like 2015, if I'm correct.
Yeah, yeah, January 2015.
Right. And then you obviously moved on to branch out with your brand Gorilla Convict and then getting involved with films, and a lot more writing, books and stuff like that. Um, and there are some projects you have on the plate right now, in your plate. Can you
Yeah,
share,
yeah.
some of those with us?
Yeah, so I got this documentary. It's about the mafia and heroin. It goes way back to like prohibition times. It's called Dope Men, America's First Drug Cartel. And what it does, it goes all the way back to the 20s, and it shows how like before prohibition even ended, the mob was already looking for like new ways, like how are we going to replace this? Because they knew it wasn't going to last. You know, they had made so much money. Because, but really, before prohibition, you had like gangsters or thugs and stuff, but it was more like local. You know, prohibition, the money the gangsters made from prohibition, like gave them that thing where they could make political connections, you know, they where they could set stuff up. So that was like the first time, you know, before these dudes were like, you know, the black hand guys, you know, extorting local businesses, stuff like that. So prohibition, the money from prohibition really changed the mob and gangsters and everything. So Dope Man goes in and it shows how some of these really influential mobsters, right, who have really never had a name for heroin, you know, like a Lucky Luciano, and then you know some of the Jewish or Irish gangsters like Jack Legs Diamond, you know, and then the guy chasing him, you know, Harry Anslinger, you know, and the other big Jewish gangster, Otto Rothstein. You know, it was just like all these crazy connections, and then you see how it kind of went. So it's like, you know, the Italians, you know, kind of took to organized crime. You know, the Irish kind of moved into like politics and law enforcement, and the Jewish like moved, you know, all into like the bank's finances, you know, with the casinos and stuff. So, and it's really all this stuff, man, is kind of, you know, boiling to fruition, you know, in the 20s, and are really shaped by like these guys that the dope man about is about. Because, you know, as soon as they lost the money from the prohibition, from the alcohol, the money was still coming in because they started bringing in the heroin.
Right. And then that is what the first part of. I know it's a
Yeah,
you
yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be a multiple series. We only completed the first episode, so right now it's gonna be on Amazon. So it's gonna be like you can rent it, you know, in the next couple weeks. I don't got a date yet. Amazon's supposed to give us a date though, probably like 2 3 days before it comes out.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah, but it's gonna be up there, you know, so you can rent it or buy it, and it's also be on iTunes, and then eventually, it'll be on you know, like Tubi and like the advertising places like Roku, but that might take like, you know, 60 90 days, and so it'll just be available to like rent and buy it first. Yeah, that's volume 1. So originally I planned a 3-part series that kind of just looks at the mob, you know, the mafia. So, you know, part 1, volume 1 covers, you know, from like the 20s to like the 40s, you know, maybe 50s, and then you know, part 2, you know, we'll go more into like the French Connection stuff, you know, that era, you know, and who was kind of the leader, you know, for the heroin among the mob, and then, you know, so that'll probably be like 50s, you know, to like around 70s, and then 70s on we'll go into more like the you know, the pizza connection. Well, first the French Connection, and then the pizza connection the
Right. Yeah.
second. So
Mhm.
yeah, so the second part would be the French Connection, and the third part the Pizza Connection, and you know, just kind of look at these different dudes in the mob who were like big players and dope. You know, because a lot of these dudes got whacked or whatever for whatever reason, or went to prison. You know, but I mean, they were all given envelopes, dude. You know, it's just like in that in Goodfellas. You know, when Henry Hill is, you know, with his capo in the backyard, and he's like, man, don't fuck around with the dope, don't fuck around with the dope, don't bring that. I'm not trying to get 20 years, but then he's taking every envelope that Henry Hill gives him.
Oh yeah. Oh
You know, so yeah, so I just want to kind of show that, and because I think like that whole like I love The Godfather, man, but I think this whole it created this whole mafia myth. And I'm not saying, Michael Perna was like that. So there's men out there like that. But, the men out there like that that fit that Godfather mold, are way less. Everybody's not like that. I mean, most of the dudes, they'll kill you for a nickel. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Well,
I'm
it's
saying,
interesting you
yeah, it's
say.
cutthroat.
There was a guy in Philly, Angelo Bruno, who ran the Philly mob. And Angelo Bruno was just like Carlo Gambino, were against drugs, supposedly. But yet, in Philly, there was a Greek mob that I know about, and that ran the PCP trade in South Philly. But Angelo Bruno would collect an envelope from them every week.
Yeah.
So, so in essence, maybe he may not be dealing it, but he's collecting money for it. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
And ever since, and really, that's why I'm trying to show this whole thing that, that has always been, since Prohibition, dope has always been, the biggest moneymaker for the mob. And it makes sense too, because think, if you are a criminal, if you are a mafia don, you know what I'm saying? And you are making your money from dope and you know it, and you're like a, public figure to a certain degree, of course you're going to come out and say, oh, we don't do dope, because that's how you make all your money. You're protecting it. You're disavowing not, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, they're smart by doing that. But, then it was created, that was taken to these movies and created, like this big myth, you know. But,
Well, it's not. I wouldn't say so much a myth. It is a myth, but I think what they purposely did was they distance themselves from it, so they're not connected to it on a touching level, so to speak,
yeah,
hands-on
yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But they just collected envelopes, but nobody can prove it that they were collecting envelopes for that reason. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
that's why that myth comes along. You
And
know,
then if they don't like a motherfucker, they're just going to whack them under those grounds,
yeah, exactly,
you
exactly.
know.
You know,
Because
that's
look at all the big dope boys. A bunch of big dope boys got whacked. Mob dope boys.
ton of them.
Yeah.
But getting back to yourself, I mean, after now that you got those shows coming up, but you also have written a couple of books. Um, what was your most current one? I'm trying to remember the title.
Oh, so I had this book called Thug Life, just came out hardback. Um, and it's basically about the ties between rappers and criminals. So I mean, it looks at like some more classic stories, that a lot of people might know, like, the Jay Prince, from Houston, situation, and how he was targeted by the DEA, and just because he was having a successful rap label. So that shows the racist laws and the DEA targeting a young successful black man that's basically saying fuck you because he has so much money and his stuff is so popular. But at the same time, it looks at other stuff where you have these dudes, yeah, they were rappers, but they were also basically, straight criminals, just trying to portray themselves as rappers, and they got caught, they got indicted, and
Well, yeah,
got life.
guys
Yeah,
like
so
I would say like guys like Biggie Smalls, Tupac, even Puffy. Yeah, those guys had that background, and the
yeah,
problem
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we don't know how. I mean, I don't know how much it transitions to the music business. Maybe it did. I'm not really sure because I don't really follow that music, but what I've heard and read, it was like a how you say it kind of blended in, but people wouldn't realize it, or
Yeah, yeah.
not want to realize it, more or less, more like it.
I just try to show with the Thug Life book how, like, a lot of times, the street stuff and the music stuff, it kind of blurs maybe in the
Yeah,
artist minds or people's
exactly.
perception of the artist, and it's not really real. I mean, no, I mean, I'm not saying, that there's always going to be that dude that's a real gangster, walking across, the street or whatever. I mean, that can always be true, but the majority of these dudes, I mean, they're getting involved in this stuff, because it sells records. They're talking about this stuff because it sells records. Most of them are just performers.
Yeah, some of them, yes, correct. There was something else you were working on called, or did I think you put it out already? Teenage Felon.
Oh yeah, so this was a while ago. So I was actually I didn't produce that. I was just on it. So I was the star of the season 10 finale or the season 1 finale. I was
Okay.
yeah, so it was like episode 10, Have Drugs Will Travel, and it kind of talks about my story. You know, it's like a little 45 mini doc kind of on my case and stuff. You know, that Vice actually
Right,
did.
TV, right?
Yeah, Vice TV, yeah.
Right, correct.
Yeah,
But
so that came out probably, like 3 years ago or something, but it's a pretty good reference point for my story.
but you also have there's another. I think there's one or two other, if I'm correct, other projects that you were in the
Yeah, I got this other documentary called Nightlife. It's about to come out. It should be out in the
yeah.
next month too. Yeah. So it's about this group of violence interrupters in North St. Louis who I followed around with cameras for like 2 years. They like to walk the streets, to keep the young guys from killing each other. And but these are like the most dangerous streets of St. Louis. So they would walk like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And we walked with them, cameras, a bunch. And most of the guys, they're like, preachers or ministers or whatever, but they're not just talking, they're going out at night in the hot spots, but they give out they have like Narcan, and they'll give out food, sometimes clothes, try to get people in drug
So
rehab, try to
this,
get people in.
this is a positive production, very positive,
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm just trying to show the issues that are plaguing a lot of inner cities, and it's nice to do in St. Louis because that's where the whole Ferguson thing started. I'm just trying to I'm just trying to document these stories that I got access to.
right. But there was also wasn't there another one you were going to be doing about this
I got an LSD. I got an LSD
LSD?
one
That's the
too.
one I was thinking
Yeah,
about.
so we already showed this a couple times. It's called Psychedelic Revolution. This is probably going to be out by September too. Same model, like on Amazon and iTunes. And yeah, we showed this film. Well, it's episode 1 too because it's going to be a 3-part series. We showed this a couple times and have gotten great response. We played at Maps in Denver, which was a big psychedelic uh, convention. It was having like 10,000 people a day. And we had 2 rooms, probably about 350 people watch the film, and very, very positive response. And the same on last April 19th, we played at this venue in San Francisco called the Midway. And I think we had about 600 in attendance,
That's awesome.
and yeah, another good. Yeah,
Is
so
this
this one, I'm finishing this up now, but it's going to be released soon. It's about it's psychedelic revolution, the secret history of the LSD trade. So it goes all the way back to like when LSD was first synthesized, and we kind of follow LSD and tell LSD story and the people who were involved.
what is General? There's another project called General Ecstasy. Is that the same thing or
Oh
no?
no, 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 no! There's another one that
No.
yeah, the Generation Ecstasy. That's about this crew of guys who they had a real long run, like in the '90s, down in Atlanta, and like they were bringing in ecstasy pills from the Netherlands, and but all these dudes, they were like they were like the sons and daughters and nieces and nephews of like the Dixie Mafia guys, down there. So they got like that, but they went like all 80s, so they were more like Wall Street ecstasy dealers. So it's just weird, this weird twist. But they come from like this Dixie Mafia lineage.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it seems like everything you're doing is real life stories.
Yeah, I'm doing all nonfiction, true crime, counterculture. I'm gonna keep building this. I got 8 projects in motion right now. When I'm done with all these 8 projects, I'm gonna have like 13 hours of content, and then next year, as I finish some of these, I'm gonna start adding more. I'm just trying to amass, man, a library right now, of outlaw film stuff. I'm not gonna sell nothing. I'm gonna keep everything. I'm just gonna go through a distributor or license it, and I'm just gonna start building my content, up and getting it on the channels I'm using now, but maybe eventually, maybe have my own streaming network or something.
Well, just one last thing I want to ask you. I want to bring up back a little bit. The film Dope Men that you mentioned earlier. I know you have a lot of interesting people you interviewed on that show. A lot of them I know,
Oh
just
yeah, 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 yeah,
that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
like Scott Deutsch, Scott Bernstein, Chris Cipollini,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
some other guys. I don't remember all the names, but it's interesting how you got all those guys together. How did you
Yeah.
how did you manage that?
Dopeman was really Christian Cipollini's. That came from him.
Oh,
He brought it to me. So yeah, he had more of those connections to me. But like a lot of those dudes, I saw the name, so I happened to meet a lot of them, if not all of them, since I've been out. But yeah, definitely that was Christian Cipollini's. Kind of true crime child, that he brought that to me, and I liked it. I said, let's do it. So Outlaw Films, we did it. I directed it, we ran the production. But Christian was very instrumental, in the whole thing, as were a couple of the other people whose names you mentioned.
oh, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely collaborative effort. I was just the captain of the ship.
No, you did your shit right. That's for sure.
Yeah. So
Well,
what'd you think? You watched the film, right? You saw the screener. It's not released yet. So what do you think?
oh, it's fucking awesome. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, because I know a lot of the guys too, was even better because it was a little bit personal. And I know a lot of the stuff already, pretty much, but still, it was very interesting, very entertaining. I learned
Yeah,
a little bit too. I don't know everything. We don't know everything, but I learned a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit, and I think people will enjoy it for sure.
And we try to liven up some of the footage, because a lot of that footage, it's all old footage, and sometimes the resolution or the quality, it comes out real grainy. And a lot of times when people have that grainy footage, they just go more grainy, like they antique it or something.
Yeah,
I wanted to go a different direction, so I wanted to add kind of colors and lights and vibration. I try to make the
give it a
all
shot.
that old footage. Yeah, I'm trying to make it like walk and talk.
Yeah, well, I think you gave it more of a psychedelic feel. Tell you the truth.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I thought that was pretty neat.
yeah.
Well, my last question before we go is with that project, are you looking to go into also the Colombian and Mexican drug, which was much later on? Were you thinking about touching into those groups as well?
Yeah, so I think originally I envisioned this like three-parter, but yeah, now I think really you can go anywhere with it. You can go to the Mexican, you can go to the Colombian, you can go to the African American. It's just Dopeman, because a lot of people have pushed heroin. There are a lot of big infamous names.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, you can go so many different directions with it. It's crazy. Um, well, Seth, I know we're running out of time a little bit, but
Yeah.
I definitely
And
appreciate.
this is the first time. This is the first time I really talked about Dopeman in depth publicly here on your show. I think really this is like the launch of a franchise. I think people are gonna like this. And I think it's put together well enough. Visually. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to stimulate people visually by at least but at least telling the story. But I like that whole juxtaposition of mass media. That's why you see the animation, the newspaper articles, the graphics. Oh, and I
Mhm.
love the graphic too, the Dopeman graphic when it comes in the beginning.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
the poster is fucking sick. I
yeah,
love.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
well, like I said, Seth, I really appreciate you being on. It was really a lot of fun talking with you and learning. I definitely wish you a lot of luck on everything. And maybe some one day we could do something together.
Oh yeah, definitely. Where you out of?
New York.
Are you in New York? You're in New York? All right. No, I'm in Jersey a lot. I'm in Jersey a lot.
Oh man, if you're ever down, I'll
Uh,
come to.
I'll be like down on the shore a lot.
I'm sorry.
I'll be down on the Jersey Shore a lot, but at the beginning, like more like like Highlands and shit.
Oh,
Like where they say the Jersey Shore begins.
yeah. Okay. All right.
Not like all the way down like Atlantic City. You're about 45 minutes up from Atlantic City.
Oh, all right. It's a little easier.
Yeah, it's more like a bay than beaches.
Oh,
I think
okay.
they call it Bay Shore or something. Then it starts in the beaches in a little bit.
Right. Okay. Awesome,
All right,
brother.
cool. Yeah, well, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
No, no, I thank you, Seth. And I wish you a lot of luck. Keep in touch, and who knows? Maybe we'll do something together one day.
All right, definitely, man.
Take care, my brother.
All right, be safe.
Too. Well, thanks, guys. This is Nick Christopher of Mob Tales. Please share, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.